Governments move quickly. And so I think, even Mr. Harper, who had railed against the evils of deficits, somebody said, I got to do something fast here, and even though our banking system, fortunately, was stronger than many others. So I think we're in a place where Canadians are tolerant of deficits again. They're being told that they're just cyclical. I don't know if that's totally an honest answer. I think there are structural or permanent features of these deficits. They won't go away maybe as quickly as we might be told. But I think there's also the flip side of that, is that when good times do return and we're in sustained or kind of more regular expansionary period, that Canadians will expect to see those deficits paid down in some kind of predictable, measured way. At the same time, though, trying to pursue the dreams of a fairer Canada, a Canada that provides hopes for, be it students. Youth have been hit hard by this recession. When you look at those unemployment numbers, young people between ages of 15 and 24 have been particularly hard. And then there's others who've always been left behind, even in the previous 8 or 10 years of growth. Aboriginal Canadians, Canadians with disabilities, people with less than high school completion, who might have done kind of okay in a hot economy, but not that great, and they'll be the first to be left behind again in tough times. So, and what's interesting in places like, say, Ontario, with the auto sector, a lot of middle-aged men who were in good unionized jobs and just expected that to continue as it had done for dad and granddad at Oshawa or Windsor, in General Motors or Chrysler and Ford. They're out of work. And I think that's, we saw the Ontario government move quickly on it. And those were expensive compensation programs. Now, they might get bridged to retirement. We'll see what happens there with some of the older workers. That's a different challenge than the 15 to 24 age group who, through education, training, and we don't want to lose that generation. It might be tougher to get, quite frankly, some of these high-waged, well-unionized, compensated jobs back. Quite honestly, they might not. And clearly, they won't come back in sufficient numbers in Ontario and Quebec and other parts of the country. That's going to be tough politically to talk about with families who've been used to a pretty good income or dual income. There'll have to be some inevitable adjustments there, and people like Denise will get yelled at probably, or counterparts in other parts of the country. But those are the tough ones. But so that's part of the challenge of this recovery is to, well, trying to pay down a deficit and be modest there. And as long as governments refuse to raise taxes and they shy away from reallocating program spending, it's going to be a tricky proposition to get the dialogue to talk about the dreams again. But I think Canadians will expect that part of the payoff from the pain will be to be able to reinvest again in social infrastructure and education. And add to that, I'll wrap up with this, I guess I've maybe gone too long, but just the demographics of an aging population and a huge cohort of boomers like me who will be exiting the labor force, or maybe not exiting quite as soon as we thought because of pension meltdowns, and that's a whole other topic we could talk about maybe tonight, which there is a federal role, clearly. So, the world still seems a little unsteady, on a lot of fronts, be it housing, pensions, employment, recovery. But I would just urge that doesn't mean we should not be allowed to talk and dialogue about issues, not be allowed to dream. That's your democratic right. And even in World War II, when those were high deficits, and there was a clear and present danger and one priority about national security and so forth, some of the best thinking about social security and social policy reform happened during those years. People were looking for the better tomorrow. Why the sacrifice, why the... and you hear that from the veterans. We thank them for security and our freedom of expression, but also during that time period, they wanted a better world to come back to. They wanted a fairer Canada. And so, we're not in that. We have Afghanistan, certainly, but we're not in the same kind of worldwide conflicts we were in those days. But Canadians of that generation did dream, dare to dream, and I think we can too.